Welcome to the Speed of Trust Book Study Podcast. I'm your host and MASSP's Executive Director, Wendy Zadeb. We're starting today with the very first section of the book, The One Thing That Changes Everything, which is found in pages 1 through 26. Here, Covey introduces the idea that trust isn't just nice to have, it's the foundation that affects the speed of our work and cost of everything we do. As he puts it, nothing is as fast as the speed of trust. To help unpack this idea, I'm joined by David Myron, the principal at Perry Middle School High School. David began his career as a teacher and a coach, and for more than 2 decades, he's been serving the Perry community, the last several years as the principal. He has a deep perspective on how credibility, consistency, and follow through build trust, and how those things shape the culture in a school. Well, I'm excited to be able to start today's podcast with Dave Myron, who is currently the principal at Perry. Is it junior, senior high school, or are you strictly the high school?
So we're middle school, high school now.
Okay.
Last year we reorganized and moved 7 and 8 up into the secondary building.
Okay, great. So could you kind of just retrace your history? Where did you go to college and then your teaching positions all the way up until where you landed at Perry now?
Okay, so a quick tour back through time. I went to Michigan State. I graduated in 1987. I hold we were the last cohort that basically got lifetime teaching certificates. If you look me up on MOEX, there are no expiration dates on my teaching cert.
Yeah.
From there, I had already started doing some coaching, so I did some coaching at Sexton in track and field. I'd started coaching at Lansing Catholic in football and track and field. So that first year out of school, I was kind of knocking around and subbing. And then I got hired the next year at Lansing Catholic, worked there for 12 years, teaching, coaching. And then from there, I went to Perry. I came to Perry as a head football coach, head track coach. That was in 99. And then in 2017, I accepted the position as a high school principal. And here we are.
Wow. Well, it's awesome to have somebody with your level of experience kicking us off on the podcast. So thanks for doing that.
Welcome.
All right, so we are starting our Speed of Trust podcast, where we are reading Stephen Covey's book, The Speed of Trust, and I have recruited a group of administrators to kind of do a book talk with me and a podcast so that we can share our reflections as we go through this book and leadership lessons. But one thing that's been very clear to me in reading this book is that it isn't just a school applied book. When we talk about trust, it's in every relationship that you have. Your friendships, your marriage, relationship with your children, etc. Like this Speed of Trust book, I think, definitely is something that is a little bit humbling too, I would say. Would you agree with
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, it doesn't sugarcoat the fact that if you don't have trust, you don't have anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anyone who's been in education can go back and tick off the students and the staff members in their head that maybe didn't get all the accolades for being, super math elites or brainiacs, but if things got ugly, they're the ones you want in your corner.
Mm-hmm.
I always called that my dark alley list.
Mm-hmm.
And I have lots of students, both males and females, that if things got really ugly, those are the people I would trust to help me.
Mm-hmm. For sure, for sure. So before we jump into the book, have you had any proud principal moments? I mean, you've had a really long career.
Yeah.
What's maybe something that stands out to you?
Um, well, I just had an interesting one yesterday. It goes back to when I was teaching alternative ed. I had somebody call me up. He's 25 now, but he's finally figured out, hey, maybe I need a GED or a high school diploma. So we set up a meeting. I can't do anything for him now because he's aged out, but we're going to look at some GED opportunities for him. It's always nice to have, those weren't the successful kids. This kid dropped out of school multiple times, but he's 25. He's got his life squared away, and he called me. Okay. That kind of made me feel good.
Yeah.
We have been doing some fantastic work. Dr. Haven has brought in the Urban Learning Institute, and we've really stuck with it. We're starting year 3, and it has made a significant change in how we teach. And I think that is the challenge for every school in America. We can't keep using 18th century techniques to prep these kids for 21st century world.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. And that's something I'd love to follow up with you on. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about visiting your school for the Innovative Leaders Network that we have, but I know you are doing some great things. So, and the thing about doing something that's innovative or different is I think it makes it even more prominent how important trust is.
It really is. We work very tightly with Khan. And we're actually running 2 different pilots here, one in algebra and geometry and the other one in ELA. And to get teachers to say yes, they have to trust that I'm not just doing this for no reason. So they have to understand the why behind it. And our partner, Khan, has been very good about being upfront about this is what we're looking to do. Long story short, there is no progress monitoring beyond 9th grade that's any good. So we're working with them on developing some of those tools, but we originally started just because we wanted to help bump up our SAT scores, which really is a terrible idea. I mean,
Right.
kids are not test scores.
Right.
But when you're hearing it from everybody, it's like, all right, we'll play the game a little bit. Here's some SAT prep. And it boosted our average scores 51 points.
Wow.
But then, they asked us, what do you really want? I'm like, what I really want is for teachers and kids to fill gaps kids transfer in. I've got 7 of them laying on my desk right now. I have no idea what these kids know.
Right. Right.
And those are where these kinds of tools come in handy.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. So, what came to mind when you were reading the opening pages of this book as it focuses on the crisis of trust in our society and more specifically in our societal institutions, government, media, business, healthcare, churches, political parties?
Sure.
Like what made you kind of pause when you were just reading that section? Because just the phrase crisis of trust,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think we feel it, but maybe I hadn't like named it, like Covey does. So what were your thoughts about that?
Well, I immediately went back to COVID, where I was getting the phone calls about, everything from 5G is giving me brain cancer to vaccines are just woke government control mechanisms. Last year, we really struggled to get our vaccination rates high enough that the state wasn't going to penalize us. And you don't want to vaccinate your kids, great. Here's the paperwork, please fill it out. They wouldn't even do that. So that whole crisis, there is a lot of manufactured mistrust.
Yes.
People get their news more likely from social media or very biased news outlets, no matter which end of the spectrum they're on. And now you've got major networks that are bowing down to government pressure. It's a scary time. I mean, skepticism is important. Understanding rhetoric and how to think critically is huge, and everything comes at you in such fast waves that you got to be able to step back. And that's easy to say as an old guy. These kids are digital natives. They've never grown up. They never saw Walter Cronkite. They've never grown up in an era where you could trust anything. So we have to reteach that. And the only way you get trust is to earn it.
That's true. And I think that the crisis of trust that's around schools, all the things that happened outside of our control and,
Right.
that were government influence, et cetera, like
Yeah, you're
it
letting kids
impacts
use
us,
kitty
right?
litter in the bathrooms. Really?
Right.
Come on, I'll take you through all of my bathrooms.
Right. We're getting, yeah, we definitely were the recipients
Ugh.
of the negative trust in the schools. So how do you think that crisis of trust impacts teachers in the classroom? I mean, you gave clear examples of what
Yeah.
that looked like in your office, but how do you think that impacts teachers?
Well, I think it is difficult to get a kid to show any vulnerability in what they really don't understand if they don't trust you as a teacher. So relationship, we always talk about relationships. What we're really talking about is trust. Um, can you demonstrate to that student, I do care about how you're going to do. I am going to be there to help you. I'm also going to let you fall flat on your face and suffer real world consequences for your choices, but I'm not going to abandon you. And if you get over that hump, then they're willing to dial in. But the flip side of that is we can't teach like we did 20 years ago.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a way that you build trust too, is, I think one thing that the book has taught me, beyond the chapter that you and I are going to discuss, is this connection between credibility and trust. And I think that if you are trying to teach like you did 30 years ago, your credibility is low because it doesn't make sense. Like you're not demonstrating expertise in your craft if you're still doing the same thing you did, 25 years ago.
Correct.
All right. So, thinking about that, how have you worked to build trust with parents or the greater school community in Perry? Wanting to do things different, using Khan Academy. You can't just do that without having conversations, with
Sure.
your school board and your parent community. So, how has that worked for you and how have you gained trust there?
Oh, so I think the first thing is, the old, you can never get a second chance to make a first impression. Everybody uses email, so I get the email from mom or dad with the question, and I try to make that a phone call or a face-to-face meet the first time we do it, which gives them a chance to see who I am. I get a chance to see who they are. It's just, getting tone correct in emails, and I can wash them through AI, but it's not the same thing as having a phone conversation or a face-to-face conversation. So I think I try to make that effort up front so they have a face to put with all of this stuff. Um, and then answer their questions and keep answering them until they feel like you've addressed what their concern is. And
Hmm.
sometimes they'll keep looping back around. Sometimes they're not going to agree with you, and that's okay.
So,
You've got to be open to that.
what did you do? Because obviously moving to Khan Academy is a pretty big shift in terms of, instructional delivery model. What
Yeah.
type of communication did you do up front, to help parents and help your school board feel comfortable with that?
So we showed them what was available. We talked to them about why we were doing it. Occasionally you've got parents that, I'm really concerned about the gap. The students leave in June, come back in August. And that was one of the things. Well, if you're concerned, your kid can do, because it's open all year for
Right.
them. It's not
Yeah,
just during the school year.
right.
You can click through. You could take 10 minutes every day. It doesn't take forever. And just to keep their brain working on it and fresh on whatever activity or subject matter you're concerned on, you can cram, you can refresh. That was the discussion I had with my 25-year-old. He's like, oh my God, I haven't seen anything since high school. I'm like, dude, you didn't see anything when you were in high school either. I remember you. But come on in and I'll show you how to use Khan. And the things that you're really concerned about, we can boot up and I'll show you how to get a free account. Well, he's a parent in my community. So his kids are young, but they're going to be coming here.
Right,
That is an opportunity to make a connection and a reconnection. He's 25. The last
right,
time I saw him, he was 16.
right.
So something worked because he called me.
Hmm.
But we'll get them figured out.
Yeah, for sure. So, in this first section on page 10, Covey states once you create trust, genuine character, and competence based trust, almost everything else falls into place. Has that rung true in your career?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough that I was also the union president before I got into administration. So I had some of that built-in trust because I negotiated, I don't know, 3 or 4 contracts. Um, Now, as those people have cycled out, because we're all 100 years old, you have to reinstitute that. And I think one of the things that Covey points out is you got to follow through. If you promise somebody something, you better follow through. That's one of the easiest ways to build trust up front. Is yes, I will do that for you, and then you do it for them. The other one, I think what it does is it frees up a lot of the time you would spend trying to drag people along. Um, not everybody's going to go, woohoo, a new thing, let's go. I get it. I lived through those years where every time the legislature met, we had a new way to do everything because the people who hadn't been in school for 40 years were all of a sudden telling us how to run schools. Um, to build that trust or to build that willingness, come with me a little bit and see.
Mhm.
That's, you got to do that because I can't do it alone. I don't know all this stuff. I've got to have a team behind me.
Yeah, for sure. How does high trust culture change the speed of getting things done? I mean, to me, that was like a really impactful point in this book. And I don't know about you, but as I was reflecting on that, I was thinking of times where I've worked with various groups of people, working at MASSP particularly. We have so many different, organizations that we collaborate with.
Right.
And some we can just get going gangbusters right away. And with others, it's like referring back to the contract and people, like wanting to review commitments and when you haven't had to do that with someone in the past and you've been able to move quickly, it makes you
Right.
appreciate that, that relationship more. So how do you think that has impacted you at your school in terms of being able to get things done?
Well, we're small enough that I really literally do know everybody on a first name basis. I'm sure in bigger schools that we're only human. There's only so many people we can interact with. So getting trust up front, a lot of it is listening to people. What is your concern? And you're not going to offend me. Please tell me the truth. What is it you're worried about? And then having that discussion, I think, can diffuse a lot of stuff.
For sure. So when you're thinking about, any type of policy change, or wanting to do something differently, how does trust impact that?
First, you got to figure out who the policy is going to impact, and then try and get their input on it. There aren't a lot of things that it's just, hey, we got to do this. That happens once in a while, but for the most part, if you can get out ahead of it and say, here's the outcome and the change we're looking for. How is this going to affect you? What do you think? Where can we make it better for you and still meet our goal? It's talking to people. Some people sit back and don't say anything, and then they show up to complain. I'm like, train's left the station, dude. Come to me with solutions.
Hmm. So I think that's an important point is that, people see how you operate in the school of inviting people to the table and
Right.
listening to their input at that point. And if they choose
Mhm.
not to participate, then that they've kind of missed their option.
Right. That's a-okay, but understand that I'm tasked with moving this forward, and that's what's going to happen. And the natural consequence of that is if you don't give me some input, then don't be surprised when what's near and dear to your heart isn't being addressed.
Right. Yeah. And, being able to have, later in the book, he uses the term straight talk. And I would say
Yeah.
That's straight talk with people.
Mhm.
So pages 22 to 24, that tasks the reader with looking at their relationships both in and out of work. And it gives prompts and asks us to reflect on where our relationships fit. So obviously these prompts are pretty personal. So I'm not going to ask
Yeah,
you to share specifics about where you rated things. I'm
right.
going to put you in that hot seat. But did it shed some light for you on where trust could be improved, or did it help you maybe recognize some areas of strength in terms of trust and where it exists both in your school and personal life?
Yeah, I think that it was actually a positive thing when I reflected on that, because we've done some hard things. I didn't do them alone. I had a lot of help. I had buy-in from the staff. Um, Con was a big one because that was a big lift, but I had a couple of teachers in-house who were like con ninjas before I ever knew what the word was. And I asked them, I'm like, can I ask you to help your colleagues? And I set aside a stipend for them. I'm like, track your hours, man. I want everybody to be comfortable with this. And frankly, you know it better than I do. So, teach our teachers. And that worked out pretty well because the two staff members that stepped up were awesome. They didn't make people feel like they were dumb. They said, okay, come to me with your specific questions, and I will sit there with you and we will click through and figure out how to do this. And that's where the trust came. It wasn't, I think the trust was if I had a question, I'd get it answered.
Mm.
And we'll wait and see if Dave's brilliant idea is a brilliant idea or not.
All right. So if principals or assistant principals, were listening to our podcast today and asked you, what do you think was the key takeaway from this first chapter? What do you think it is?
You have to work to establish trust. You got to remember a lot of the people you come into contact do not know you, don't have a history with you. So you need to make an effort to go out and meet them and just talk and feel them out and see what their concerns are and see if you can allay any of those. And again, do it face to face. If you can do it face to face, that's where you start. Next, pick up the phone. Uh, Email is, there's 100 emails waiting in my inbox every day. I could probably deal with, delegate, or solve 50 of them in a 10-minute conversation with somebody.
Yes.
So I see this in my kids. They're like, oh, I'll send them a text. Oh, I'll send them an email. No, you won't. You're going to get up off the couch. You're going to go down there and look them in the eye and talk to them. You want something done, or at least call them. And that's a generational thing. Um, we have to we have to give them opportunities to become more comfortable having a one-on-one or a one to a small group interaction. Because they have to work in teams. There are very few, you don't get out and become a solo bajillionaire by the time you're 19. You go to work for somebody and you work on a team and you do your little bit and you work your way up. I always tell my son, you're not going to fall out of our basement into a corner office as a CEO. You might want to put some work in.
Well, I think that's always some good advice. And something that you said earlier that I think is a good takeaway too is just that beyond, meeting with people and talking to them, it's just listening, making sure that if they ask you to do something and you say you will, that you follow through.
Yeah.
And the more people see your consistency and follow through, I think that was a key piece to this first chapter is, that you show up and you do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. And make the expectations clear. As you get into larger and larger groups, everybody has to understand what I'm going to do, what the expectation is for them, where they go to get help. I mean, as I get older, when I get in meetings with 27 different people, I'm like, okay, boop, I'm going to record this and wash it through the AI for the bullet points because I'm not going to follow all that stuff.
Yes.
I don't think I'd have followed it 40 years ago either, but now the tools are here.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
it's,
And that using a tool that does that actually demonstrates competence and builds trust as well. I mean,
well, if you forget something, you want to hurt somebody's feelings, forget what it was you said you were going to do for them because it was in minute 12 of a 57-minute meeting.
right. Yeah,
That'll go over big.
right. Right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time because I know this time in the school year is super busy, and taking time to reflect for yourself is not something that we often do as principals,
Right.
maybe as much as we need to. But I think this book has a lot of application to the work that we do because this is a relationship business.
Yeah. I mean, Covey hit the nail on the head. Character and competence. Um, I'm good at some things, I'm meh at some things, and I stink at some things. And I have to know which those are. And when I'm not good or I stink at it, I need to reach out for help and be honest with people. This is not one of my strengths. Can you help me here? I
Hmm.
think that builds trust where they see that the person who's supposed to be in charge still needs help with things and is willing to talk to colleagues. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, I am your boss, but this place doesn't work without you guys.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
my name's not on the building.
That's right. And that's such a key point to make is that, we're all in this together and that it's a continuous learning business, as much
Yeah.
as it's about relationships. Well,
Well,
thank
and
you.
if you haven't had your ego burned out by year 25, you're not doing it right.
Well, I really appreciate you meeting with us today and taking the time. And hopefully, I'll circle back with you again
Sure.
to be able to meet with you and see some of the great things that you're doing in terms of using Khan Academy with students. I'd love to see how that's increasing your engagement and
This will be year one for the ELA pilot, but it's going to be year two for the math. So we got some interesting data. We've had some awesome discussions with the con people about bias, implicit bias in testing, when they started talking about that, I'm like, ooh, okay, now I'm on board. Bias number one is you better be able to read or all these tests don't make any sense. But
right, right.
reading is a skill, not an intelligence.
Right. Well, that's a great point to make too. So I look forward to circling back with you on some of those things and learning more about what you're doing. Have a great opening of the year.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Okay, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
That wraps up episode 1 in our conversation on the one thing that changes everything. Be sure to join us next time for episode 2, where we'll look at the You Can Do Something About This, pages 27 through 41. I'll be joined by Mrs. Christina Manley, the principal at the Battle Creek STEM and Innovation Center. She brings great insight into how stewardship and self-trust set the tone for leadership in schools. So before you begin to listen, take a little time to read pages 27 through 41 and then come back ready for another thoughtful conversation. Until next time, keep leading with trust.